You set to go?
You're all set to go.
Okay. Evening, everybody. It's March 9th, 2023. This is the Finance Committee meeting. We are sitting in Channel 18. Tonight we have two significant events. One is the public hearing on the capital outlay plan, which is a timed meeting, which will be at 6:15. And we also have one on the 2024 operating budget, which will not happen until at least 6:45. It just depends on our discussions as we go forward. I'll just note that looking out there in TV land, I know that in addition to our members here, I see Dana DaCosta, I see Karen Doucette, I see Town Administrator Joe Powers, I see Anne-Marie Ellis, I think this is our last event as the Finance Director. We feel blessed, thank you, we appreciate that. I think I see Chief LeBlanc and Deputy Thornton, is that right? I think they're muted, and there you go. All right, here we go. Okay, great, good to see you folks. And in the audience from the Water Wastewater Commissioners, we have Noreen Donahue is with us. So, and hopefully we'll get some other people coming in as time goes on. So just let me do a few housekeeping things. We have a potential date of Tuesday, the 14th, which is next Tuesday at 6 p.m. To meet with the Monomoy Regional School District to review their budget in this room. If folks can make it. So let me just, can I get a sense of who can make it, Angelo?
I hope so.
Okay, Dan?
Let me check.
Okay, Mark?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I believe so.
You believe so?
I believe so.
And I can make it. Dana, can you call in for that meeting?
It's a Sunday.
Yes, I'll be
Tuesday.
there.
Okay, and Karen, can you
Days
call
are
in
taken.
for that meeting?
Thursday or Tuesday?
I'm not sure.
Karen? Unmute
Sorry,
yourself.
Yep, I got you.
Can you call?
Yeah, I can, you said 6 o'clock?
Yes.
I'll be there, I'll make it.
Okay,
What's the
All
date?
right.
What's the date again?
the 14th.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Yeah, I can make it.
Okay, we'll have a quorum. Dana, would you take care of coordinating the posting?
Yes. I'll send it.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, good. Next question for the, for my board members, conflict of interest training. Everybody finished that?
I got it.
Anybody who hasn't finished it has to be done by April 7th, if I remember correctly. Dana, did you take that?
Yes.
Okay, Karen, I think I saw an email from you before you took it. So, okay, so we should be totally in compliance. All right, good. So while we're waiting for 6:15 for the public hearing, the first one, Joe and Anne-Marie, are there any updates financially from our session on Saturday? We didn't change free cash or anything, or?
That's all right.
Can't hear you. Unmute.
No other free cash has been adjusted since the last meeting, before Saturday.
Okay. Any other updates you want to share with us? If there were any?
Mr. Chairman, my update would be on presenting the draft warrant to the board at their meeting on Monday, March 13th, which will include the operating budgets, capital plan, and other financial articles. The intent Monday evening is for the board to start actively voting to at least add articles to the warrant, and certainly I'll be sharing with you immediately after that meeting the output of that. So I expect that the board wanted to have discussion Monday, March 13th on budget items, including Article 4 operating budget, and I believe also related to the capital plan.
Okay, and when do you expect, Joe, that the warrant to be headed our way so we can take a look at it?
As I mentioned, whatever they vote to place Monday evening, I'll immediately send over to you folks. I worked on the warrant today. I have 70-something articles. What I'm missing right now is just related to zoning. bylaw amendments and, I think one or two straggler concepts of the board's dealing with. So I expect to be able to send down a substantial warrant to you folks Monday evening after the board meeting.
Okay, that'd be great. Good. Thank you. Thank you. So Dana, in our posting for Tuesday's meeting with Monomoy School District, please add an item after we do the schools, just reviewing the warrant articles and any discussions and possible votes. Just cover us on that, will you please?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anything else for an update? Okay, one thing I will say, just before we get started here, before we get to the public hearing, Joe, I don't have it electronically with me. I do know that Karen has it. We can share it with you. But we compiled from last Saturday's meeting, pass that around, please. Just a spreadsheet on the new positions and the different costs associated with it. I mean, we got a lot of blanks on here, but, you know, just a way to try and summarize what we're looking for there. So we can send that to you, Karen. Would you send that to Joe and Emery electronically, please? And, you know, whatever you can do at some point in the very near future to fill that in would be helpful. And maybe you have those
Excellent,
numbers.
thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll look for that, and I can certainly have that tied back to a draft article on personnel issues.
yeah,
Excuse me, personnel positions,
right. And we're just,
not issues.
yeah, no, primarily, we're at the moment, we're just trying to consolidate and summarize the information we received or thought we heard, and then trying to fill in the blanks on benefits and that kind of thing, so. And I do know, thanks, Chief, for sending in your information to clarify with the firefighters about expenses and benefits and that type of thing. So that was very helpful, so that's all good, okay? Obviously, these positions are warranted, and the job is to, you know, see how we can convince everybody else that they need to, you know, get approved and funded, if you will, okay?
I just sent it, Peter.
Okay, good. Dana may not have it, you may want to send it to him as well. Everybody else here has a copy. Yeah, okay. Good. The other thing, since Noreen is here, we did have a session, Michelle and I sat down on February 2nd, I believe it was, with the water superintendent, one water commissioner, which was Noreen, and worked through and Sandy.
Sandy, yep.
We went about, I don't know, hour and a half or 2 hours. I think everybody knows this at this point in time. We just threw darts at the wall to say, hey, in the capital plan, we don't have things for wastewater out in the future, like 27 and 28. And it seemed odd to us, at least Michelle and I, started talking about things like debt and whatnot, why we wouldn't have something out there. So we had a very productive session, and out of that came a projection as to, you know, what might be spent, just in gross dollars, if you will, over time. And so when we get into the public hearing on the capital plan, I have circled back with Dan. I talked to him this morning, and I think Noreen can speak to it when we get there. They do want to include in the capital plan some items out in 27 and 28, so don't be surprised by that. Okay, and again, I have copies of it here. Anybody who didn't get one previously. Am I doing a good job of stalling? It's like,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
yeah.
based on that comment, when would you think the Finance Committee and Water Wastewater Commissioners would be bringing in the selectmen and administration on that? I know we all know that until it becomes flow, those are also issues that the Board of Selectmen have a responsibility for.
Yep. No, I understand. And this may do nothing more than prompt the board to say, yeah, we want to put something out there just for planning purposes. You know, I'm just throwing it out there, that's all, so,
Peter?
yeah. Noreen,
Peter had asked me, and Dan, of course, to look over the spreadsheet that came out of that meeting. And I had originally said to Peter, a certain number looked good for 27, just roughly projecting, and another one for 28, but the more I think about that, I really don't think we should almost go into 28. There's so many variables, things always take longer than we expect. I would think that the one number, the 84 million, however it gets discussed or coordinated or whatever would be sufficient. So that's just my 2 cents.
okay, you should circle back with Dan, I'm just,
Okay.
That's a point to consider, okay? All right. We have 4 minutes to the public hearing, I don't know if anybody else has something else they wanna jump in on? Let's see, we got the who's see. By the way, the intent this evening is, if we can get to it, is for the board, this board, to at least make some comments, suggestions, recommendations that were back to the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator on these 2 items, the capital plan and the operating budget, if we have any, so. Jamie, I have a question. Do we have any idea how many people watched on Saturday?
You know, I haven't checked.
Oh.
I'm still recovering from Saturday, so I haven't looked at the statistics from it.
Okay, but you can tell.
I can, and I can get that number to you in just a moment.
Just curious. Well, you probably know since then if somebody looked at it, right?
Yeah, it's been playing for the past couple of days. You had 96 views on your morning session and 66 views on your afternoon session.
Oh.
And that's just on YouTube. And it's aired, each part has aired 4 times since then, because it's
Okay.
so big, it takes up a lot of
All right,
airspace.
good. Good. Do we have a copy of the capital plan, by the way? Yeah, good. Hey, Joe, one housekeeping question, if I could. We do have a couple of members, I think, that haven't gotten budget books yet. There's some extra ones that I could pick up at town hall or something?
Yes, we collected whatever was left over Saturday, and I think we have binders available, so just connect with either Patience, Danielle, or Megan, and we'll make sure we have that around.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, out of 6 6:15, so at this point, I want to ask Michelle to please read the notice of public hearing for the capital outlay plan.
Notice is hereby given under the Harwich Home Rule Charter, Chapter 9, Section 7-1. The Finance Committee will hold a public hearing on the FY 2024 Capital Outlay Plan Friday, Thursday, March 9, 2023. Thursday, that was a typo. No earlier than 6:15 p.m. This meeting will be a virtual public hearing where members of the public will be invited to join the meeting via their computer, tablet, or smartphone. The dial-in instructions will be posted in the meeting agenda when it is posted prior to the meeting. Meeting agendas must be posted at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. The agenda packet will also contain a general summary of the capital outlay plan as required by Chapter 9-7-1. A copy of the proposed capital plan will be available in the agenda packet. The capital outlay plan will also be printed in the annual town meeting warrant, which will be published and distributed at least 2 weeks prior to the annual town meeting.
Thank you. So at this point, I'll open the public meeting on the five-year capital outlay plan, FY 24 to 2028. So Joe, I guess a first question I would have is on the plan that we have been provided, and I think I know why, we've included items that are less than $50,000, and I think that was because of the funding source, perhaps. If I remember correctly, and maybe I'm wrong, but the plan itself should have items that are $50,000 or more. Is that correct?
You are correct. There was an effort to make sure that first we were transparent on items that departments were asking for. Then, as you said, the funding source, and last but not least, so that I didn't lose track of it. So as I was writing articles up till today, there's going to be references to capital items in the plan and the funding source, and then there will be references to items that are of a certain dollar value, not referenced as capital.
Okay, so when the capital plan gets published in the warrant, will these items less than 50,000 be taken out?
Yes, they'll be accounted for in an appropriating article, but not in the plan.
Yeah, so we could just, I mean, that's just a comment, and for our benefit, we could just sort of X them out, right? I mean, as far as consideration in the plan.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So when I read this for FY 24, those items would include the Channel 18 equipment upgrades at a 4388. Fire department equipment replacements only at 15,809. Harbor Master Wixon landing improvements, 30,000. Police department technology replacement at 20,000. And I think that's it. Is that correct?
That jives with what I have.
Okay, good. So is everybody clear on that?
Mhm.
So, okay. So let me just look at a couple items here. Chief, I see under the fire department, you're on a plan for every other year for an ambulance, right? Chief LeBlanc, you there?
Yeah, I'm just, attending. Yeah, that's correct. That's the same plan that we've operated under for, as we added the third ambulance, which would have been back in 95 or 96.
Right, okay. And then the next item down, which is engines or other fire-equipped vehicles, $350,000 in 2024. What is that vehicle?
Jeff, you want to handle that?
So what?
Which one was that?
2024, the one you're looking for this coming year.
Yeah, the 350,000.
Right.
That's the mini pumper
Okay.
that we did a presentation on about a couple months back, and it had to do with replacing one of the vehicles, the 2005 Ford Forestry unit that's at headquarters, with a smaller pumper that has a little bit more capabilities than what we have right now, but not as much capabilities and how much more money it would cost for a full-size fire truck. So that's that $350,000.
Okay, Deputy, thanks for that. And if I look out to 2028, what is the 750?
Yeah, that's the replacement of the next engine, so the 2012 Suckers that with the replacement cycle now we're looking at, we're at 42 months. So we do fire trucks about every 20 years. And that will put that in that time frame of having to be replaced. So it's the primary engine in Station 2 right now.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Just want to get clarification of that. What else do we have here? Dun, 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 dun. You guys answer. Joe, what's the transfer station upgrade or the 157,300 for 2024?
I'm going to rely on the network to work to get my notes on that one. Let's see here.
Danny, you might know this one.
The discussions that I heard, they were looking at updating the recycling area. That area is based on, a 1980s plan. And the amount of recycling has changed over that period of time. And a lot of other recyclers are going to compactors and things like that that make it less expensive to transport it. You can transport more at a time, which helps keep the cost down. So that's the only discussion that I know of for the transfer station. But at that point, I'll point out that I was the lowest member on the totem pole. So I wasn't privy to all the chiefs having their Indians.
I understand. Okay, good. And I'm just
Mr. Chairman, if I could thank you, a member, for the delay tactic. I found my notes, so Dana, thank you. The specific request is for a generator upgrade. It was on past year's plans. The original dollar amount, I think, was $145,000. So the dollar amount we see now reflects the current prices. So that's generator at transfer station.
Okay, so let me ask a question, Joe. So you said that reflects current pricing. Is there been a bid with that?
I believe there was a request for quotes.
Okay.
Not a bid, but a request for quotes.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it, Noreen.
So, just kind of a general comment from 30,000 foot level. For instance, on the facilities management section, so for each category, it doesn't really tell us what the money is for, as you've just asked two separate things. So, I mean, I would imagine at town meeting, we're gonna have to describe every single thing. It seems to me some other years, we might have had a very brief word, like generator, or like this, or like that, but in this, all we have is the address, so it may be difficult to get people to vote for something when they really don't know what it's for.
Well, Joey, I'm assuming when you talk about putting a warrant together, you're anticipating articles to most of these, and the article would describe what it is. And let's just say, for instance, the transfer station number. I'm guessing, right?
Well, to the article question first, that's one of the items up for discussion Monday evening with the board. As you know, the board's been talking about the charter requirement on amendments to plans. So I need the board to give me guidance on how they want those articles to look. I've presently done it based on funding mechanism. I can do it based on location or department category, like facilities maintenance, whatever it may be. Regardless, however, 54 days out from town meeting, what you'll find is there will be ample information both in the explanations in the warrant article as well as Appendix C that relates to the capital plan.
Okay, you good? You good? Go ahead.
Almost, but wouldn't Appendix C be the same plan that we're looking at? I'm just clarifying that there probably wouldn't be any further, yes, in the article, so that would be great. But Appendix C probably wouldn't have, for instance, in that example, generator. It would still just have the list of addresses.
Respectfully, no, Appendix C is the capital plan and any other documents that I add to do that. So again, the effort here is more transparency. So Appendix C is the capital plan and the form that the board wants it and additional information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, Joe, if I remember right, on Saturday, I heard a discussion, I think that the police chief is looking for $180,000 for cruises to be put into the plan. Is that right?
Correct, it's $183,000 that has been updated to the plan document that will be, and I should say the table document that will be embedded in the article. But that dollar amount from quotes from Deputy Considine, again, is $183,000. It is added to the free cash section of the funding scheme and will be presented to the Board of Selectmen as such in the articles and the accompanying documents.
Okay, so just to be clear, that would be on the capital plan, is that right?
Correct, that was available to the board to have as a capital outlay
Okay.
rather than in an operating budget.
Okay, I'm just looking at that one. All right, so Brooks Academy, which if I understand it, we basically funded like 1.2 million for the foundation, right?
I'm going to use your quote, I think that's pretty accurate.
Something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this 600,000 in subsequent years to do what? I think I remember hearing they need to put in like new HVAC and stuff like that.
So the notes Virgin Island doesn't have that. I'm going to try and find another one that has more detail on that.
I guess the bottom line, and my question ends up being, we authorized 1.2 before, now we got another almost 1.5. Are we done at 2.7 when we get to that?
I think as we're meeting right now, David Spitz is in front of the Community Preservation Committee. I think he has applications before them, so I would say I'm going to defer to David. I wouldn't say that we're done yet. But I want to rely upon where he's coming from in his CBC applications.
Yeah, okay, all right. And then, so likewise up at the, I'm jumping around here, but the middle school, I don't want to focus on this year yet, but in the following year, the 650, and then in 2026, the 265, what's in those things, you know? What are they? I know this year we're talking about doing some partial windows stuff. Does that get the rest of the windows done or something, or?
According to the notes I have from Sean Ridley, give me 1 second. The 650,000 is new to the plan, meaning that was added during the capital outlay committee's process, and that is a dollar amount that relates to the slate roof in fiscal year 25. Sorry, I have to add it to read.
Well, that's okay. No, that's okay. That's all right. So if I get back, yeah, go ahead.
Fiscal year 26, that 265, is that what you see?
Yeah.
Is 85,000 for repairs to the rear of the building. 185,000 is categorized as, quote, general repairs.
Okay, so that's kind of finishing out, I think. I just call it repairs right at that point in time.
That's how I categorize it.
Okay, all right. So if I get back to this year for the middle school, if I remember right, there's a generator and a transfer switch, right? And then there's the boiler or a heating system, whatever we're calling it. And then there was a fire alarm or fire safety system, something like that. It might not be called the fire alarm, it might be called something else. And then there was the auditorium stuff. Is that the major things?
Correct.
Okay.
I believe the breakout is 1.5 on building items, and the remainder 400 something for auditoriums and all that. But of course, if my luck would have it, I am having difficulty building the network.
Okay. So when I think about that building, when we talk about having to change the heating system, that, you know, I see it references a boiler. Are we actually designing and replacing a complete heating system or a complete HVAC system, or are we just replacing what was there, sort of thing? I guess my point is, I'm trying to get to, are we trying to make this building like green community, something or other? And I know, Noreen, you have some interest in that. You know, we try to, you know, increase the windows and that kind of stuff and get to some, I don't know, certification level as far as the environment goes or how we operate the building. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think the quick answer on that is, given that the board has affirmed the use of the building, continuous use of the building, I directed Sean to say, what are the immediate concerns? So I think you've heard him present both to the Capital Outlay Committee and as we've discussed at the adjourned meeting with the Board of Selectmen, that what we're trying to impact upon fiscal year 24 are those things that are going to have the greatest impact on the humans that occupy the building rather than the building structure itself. So we're making sure that we're tying back on fire suppression and or fire alarm systems, suitable heat transfer systems, and the like. If I remember Sean correctly, he had those in prior years' plans and out years. I think we was tying into fiscal year 25, and the logic, and I agree with the logic from that time, was the Board of Selectmen had indicated that they would be revisiting the use of that building that would impact upon decision-making in 25. So Sean's effort was to bring that forward fiscal year 24 and get the most done that he can to support the ongoing presence of individuals in the building. Okay,
So I haven't seen any talk of air conditioning, is that right? Or am I wrong?
You may have, but I don't think it emanated from facilities maintenance or administration.
Okay. Well, you know, I might have seen it in Kara's plan she put together or something. But right now we're not committed to air conditioning the building. Is that right?
Not for fiscal year 24 efforts.
Okay. All right.
That wasn't the FY 24 plan, but it was in the presentation, I think, that Kara did on Monday as critical component beyond this year or before.
So, Karen, are you saying that's like next year, or what are you saying?
No. There was no year identified. It was just identified, if you read Kara's report, it was identified as something that was important in later years to support the full projection on program. There's a lot of stuff in there, so that's just one of several things, yep.
Okay, and I don't know enough about the building to understand how the heating system would work with air conditioning and whether they're mutually exclusive or, you know what I mean, like duct systems and all that, or whether it's totally separate or they're integrated. I have no idea, so. Good.
Peter and Joe, when Sean made his presentation on the slate roof, after Brooks Academy, he wanted to be cautious, and he put it in for a slate roof replacement because he thought it was a historic building. To my knowledge, it's not historic, and you can save about 1/3 of the cost. You could put asphalt shingles there that look like slate. Slate is is very expensive and time consuming. So that's just something to confirm. Sean put it in as slate because he thought it was a historical building. I don't believe it is.
Okay. Other questions on that? I don't want to dominate the discussion, so. So let me ask this question. The auditorium renovations, and I did read Kara's report with great interest. I didn't see it, but I read it. And I would just make this comment. I mean, I think that she got all of us to the point we probably should have been last July and to work forward. But the problem I have with her financial analysis, if that's what you want to call it, and I don't know if anybody else read it or not, but she kept talking about return on investment, ROI. And her version of return on investment was simply generating funds to support hiring people, if you will, without any consideration, from what I could tell, of how you pay back the investment in modifying that auditorium or the area, whatever. And by the way, so, if you rent it, there is a phrase called contribution margin. What is the contribution margin that goes back to paying this thing off? And no recognition of what the contribution to utilities or, support staff at that point in time to operate it. So it was all about generating revenue, in my opinion, to pay for people, if you will, which, that's a strategy, that's a way of doing it. It's not my way of looking at it. My opinion, quite frankly, is you're gonna have so much going on there next year between the boiler, the fire system and whatnot. My preference only is to push that off by 1 year in the plan and do it in 2025, but that's just me, so I just throw that out there, guys. All right, we'll move on. My next question. Joe, I don't have last year's plan in front of me, but if we took last year's plan and looked at what the plan called for in 2024, how different would it be?
I think what you'll notice is there were items that may have been moved out as part of the prioritizing process. I think obviously the biggest change we'll see, and the thing that I strive for in my notes version, is making sure we updated for the realities of the marketplace, as far as prices going up as they've done. As you can see with the example on the generator, the price change on that, I think, was close to $20,000 more than what we were expecting from a year earlier. So the biggest change is more making sure that we've updated the plan to have most accurate numbers.
Okay, I'm just looking at the plan now. Last year, the FY 24 number total was $44,632,288. So we've added $31 million to it. So something came on board here.
Yeah, it was.
Wastewater added, last year wastewater was at 32 million. Now it's at 54. So there's 20 of it, basically.
Yeah, I think you can obviously look at the big ticket items that are in fiscal year 24. And I'm going off of memory right now just because my computer's irritating me. But we've got the sewer main installation on Route 28, we have the water main replacement on Route 28, and we have the expansion of East Harwich sewer collection system. Every one of those items was changed upward. And so that's why, as I've been telling people, when you look at a capital plan that is $75 million, right away we can back out 68 million. And I think that's one of the biggest changes. Otherwise, it's things like the generator where you see it, say an increase of, and just back of the napkin right now, but say 10 to 15% on costs, which is what we're seeing in the marketplace based on the supply chain issues that are still out there, inflation issues and all of that. But the biggest change to the plan year over year are those big ticket items.
Okay, do you know, last year Allen Harbor Jetty was projected to be done in '24, and now it's pushed out to, where'd it go?
27.
27. Is there a reason for that, or?
I think what we were capturing on that is what's referenced now in fiscal year 27 is engineering, owner's project manager, and construction costs. And I think one of the reasons we moved it from 24 to 27 was to account for those realities, and it's also something that John Rendon feels comfortable pushing out to 27 to make sure we capture all those costs on it. So I think, this is the concern that I have when we read the charter commentary on what an amendment is and how it's handled. Council, I'll defer to council's opinion on that, but a change like that, where it's the subject matter expert's belief that rather than doing it in 24, it would bear more fruit in 27. I'm going to put my money on my harbor master, and I don't want to lose the plan on a supermajority quantum vote.
Yeah, no, I get it, not a problem. So if I look at the total for the 5-year plan that we have now is 124 million, basically, okay? And that's before we think about adding 80 million, if you will, for wastewater in the out years, compared to compared to 79 million, which was in the plan total for last year. So right there is about a $45 million in total delta we gained over 1 year. Seems like a lot.
If you're saying with the addition of a year, is that part of what you're talking about? Because, right, we added 14 million in potential projects when we add fiscal year 28 to the new plan.
Yep.
But again, that bottom line number, the 124, is also going up because of all the other ticket items, 24 through 28.
Yeah, I just think it's, the plan we had is not the plan going forward, and I get it, I understand why things change and whatnot. It's just, a little bit of sticker shock, that's all. I'm just pointing that out, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or different.
On the sticker shock, what I've been trying to do to continue to keep my head wrapped around it is, looking at it in terms of, okay, we have a plan for the fiscal year, and we have the budget for the outlying years, and we appropriate for the plan year, and we continue to sharpen our pencils, find other sources of funding, and continue to evaluate what's going on out there. What we haven't put out there yet in the public sphere, I can imagine why you and your colleagues and the folks at the Water Wastewater Commission want to do a 20-year look at the water wastewater plants, because so do I, and so does DEP. So we're still dealing with, I'll call it governmental/political items that we're waiting to hear on DEP and whatnot. But as those things happen, those things will have a major impact on our planning for capital.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay. Questions?
Just one more comment on 204. When I read Kara's report, it looks like the conditions in the building in the summer are really intolerable, up in the 90-degree temperatures. if it comes to the fact that you're gonna need air conditioning, the systems that they make now can do both air conditioning and heat. So my concern is, if air conditioning is a very strong possibility for that building, that the furnace replacement will be redundant. In other words, you could put the furnace in and then find out when you go ahead and make a full plan for air conditioning with a heat pump system, that could take care of the heat, and then you have $500,000 that didn't need to be spent. So that is a concern as I hear more and more about air conditioning, unhealthy conditions, municipal employees. I think it's an imperative you will need air conditioning. And if you are, as you know, Peter, and I've sent you some of that information, there are systems out there that can do a combination heating and air conditioning.
Okay. Yes, Noreen.
If I could add on to Mark's comment, I don't know, Joe, if the boiler and or fire alarm system has gone through the Green Communities application process. You know, we got the money last year for the community center, a few years before that for the library, and I just hate to see money left on the table. And I asked that question in January, but I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I think that Sean has said that we always want to avail ourselves of the green community process. I don't know that he has done that evaluation or has been able to do that evaluation yet for 204 system. But we're always striving. That program continues to pay dividends year in and year out. And we're always striving to make sure we can get as much done under the auspices of that program.
Right.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if I could very quickly, I just want to put out there regarding municipal buildings and air conditioning. And this is one of the reasons why I'm reshaping the plan, because I will go to my either employment or eternal grave, whichever it may be, saying that, you know, the plan is intended to provide as much information upfront and with ancillary materials so that everybody is aware of what our buildings cost. And for the record, there were 5 work days in the summer of '22 where town hall was in excess of 80 degrees and therefore unsafe and unhealthy conditions. And so it's not just 204 Sisson Road, and that's been my mantra since I became town administrator. We as a town need to tackle the concept of all of our buildings. Most of our buildings are greater than 50 or 60 years old, including the hub of our government, town hall. So I appreciate the point on 204. For me as administrator, my concern is first to the employees. We will never put them in unsafe conditions, and when unsafe conditions occur, we address it immediately. But I wouldn't want anyone to think that all of our buildings are doing great. They're not, and that's why we have a robust capital plan.
So Joe, hang on a second. So on Sisson Road, if we at some point go to air conditioning, which is not in the plan for the coming year, if I understand it, when would the first opportunity be to do that? Is it out in 26 or 27, or what are you thinking?
Well, what I'm thinking is to continue to watch the grant environment that's out there with all of the different programs. If we find a program, and if Sean has ample information, and we think we can make a hit in fiscal year 25, we'll do that. Again, I'm always mindful of the amendment provision, which has been in place for 4 years, hasn't been tested, don't want to be the administrator to test it, but I'm not going to let grant programs go by the wayside because of a final vote. So we continue to meet regularly on our buildings, not just related to the capital process. So if there's a way to insert it in sooner years, and it makes sense, we'll do it.
Okay, but I guess I'm trying to get my head around, and excuse me for carrying on about this, I guess. If we decide later on to air condition that building, I had no idea what that costs. I mean, it could be $2 million. I had no idea. But if we decide that we don't want to have people in there, whether it's our people or, you know, the folks that are renting spaces, or this auditorium, that we're gonna invite people in and whatnot. I mean, I don't know, I have a performance, all these lights on and whatnot, if you got 85 degrees or something, nobody's gonna sit there. It almost seems like the way we're headed is we're gonna have to air condition that building. I mean, I'm just thinking it through in my head, without a lot of knowledge, but it just seems like it's gonna have to be done.
So I guess what I would say is I'll defer to others that have been in that building over the last several years, when it was its highest, best use as a school. And we know that the school year runs from teachers are in the buildings late August through late June. And so if we have to adjust our programming because of unseasonal and unhealthy heat in July and August, that's one of the things we have to do. But there was never this kind of discussion about air conditioning a middle school that would have had heat issues in June, September, and October. So I'm not as concerned about it from a program standpoint because I also inherited, and this is a point that I tried to bear out when I first came on the scene here. I didn't add individuals, inhabitants in the building a 204 system road. They've been there since 2016. So for me, if the town is improperly placing people in unsafe conditions, then we've been doing that for the better part of a decade, coming up on a decade, and we're not, but it's something I'm always mindful of. So we can work programming in that building around the majority of months in the year as was done when it was its highest and best use. I could go on and on about that, but I think that's the best way for me to capstone this topic.
Okay, I mean, my dilemma with me is whether you look at the whole approach or a whole system approach to say, let's fix the whole thing and face the fact we're gonna do it up front. So for me, for instance, if I don't have air conditioning in that wonderful auditorium, I think you're gonna have a lot less potential to rent it out and get the kind of revenue that, at least Kara thinks she's gonna get. So I almost think, in my mind, we should take care of the basic building needs, and after we're done with that, move on with the auditorium stuff. I don't know, it's just me, I don't know what anybody thinks, but I'm getting tired of talking, so somebody, Noreen.
Well, I'm gonna go off topic, I'm gonna go back to the, hold on,
Wait, Noreen's got a point, then I'll get to you, Dana.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Dana. Just back to the green communities issue for 1 second. When I looked at the reports of how much they've given out to different towns over the last several years, average isn't the right word, but it seems like they're running around 300,000 for a boiler as an offset, which is what we got for this building last year, and it's what we got for the library about 4 or 5 years ago. So, I mean, I would suggest, if for whatever reasons it hasn't been done, because Joe, I'm well aware that this was out several years and, for other reasons got moved up. The town could always vote to say they approve this expenditure pending the outcome of a Green Communities application. I would just hate to see 300,000, it goes through pretty quickly. I don't know the timing, certainly Sean has been a master of it because he's been getting us those monies for years. And I just don't want to see $300,000 left on the table.
Okay. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say that, you were talking about the whole plan and how it looks and stuff, and the idea of getting a line item in there for each one of our buildings, I think that was a good way to go. I don't see anything in the next 5 years for Station 2. I don't know if that's what should be there. We don't have anything in here for the South Harwich Meeting House, but I think at some point we'll have a capital plan that has a line item that includes each building and maybe one line item that includes all of our public bathrooms out there in the world. But I just think that this kind of format is real good. I like that, and it shows that in the next 5 years, as Joe said, we're gonna spend $11.5 million on our public buildings here, and it's probably gonna go up from there. And those were some of the things that we talked about, that when you throw a 20-year, $400 to $500 million water sewer system on top of that, we still have to do these things on top of putting in the sewer system. It's very, very tough pill to swallow for all of our taxpayers, and we're gonna have some trouble wrestling with this one, I think.
Okay. Anybody out there in TV land have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, before you open that, can I just respond?
Yeah.
Because Dana said something nice, so first I want to say thank you, and I appreciate that, Dana. But I also want to build on that very quickly. Dana's absolutely right. You may recall that I had shared with the Capital Outlay Committee a report back in September of 2022 after my annual meeting with the Mass Interlocal Insurance Association, or MIA. That's technically the public sector's insurance company. And so what we talked about is all of the physical plant. So Dana's absolutely right. What you see in the current capital plan is physical plant as it relates to building structures. But as I've found working through the MIA reports and knowing our overall exposure, physical plant can also impact upon pump stations, water towers, sheds, and things of that nature. So certainly comfort stations are in that category as well. When we're talking about physical plant, we're talking about over $100 million in, I think what they refer to it as replacement value. Not that we could necessarily replace some of these things, but that's the exposure. So for me, this year it's about facilities maintenance as an element of physical plant, but Dan is absolutely right. We capture all of it under our insurance, so we try to capture all of it as we build our capital plans.
Okay. Just want to make sure everybody out there in TV land gets a chance to comment if they have a comment. I can't read all the names up there, but.
Yeah.
Think we're good?
I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Okay.
Can I make
Go
one
ahead.
more comment? Who undertakes a large construction project without knowing what the end purpose is gonna be and what your final construction cost is? I don't think we've done that for 204 Citizen Road. We're starting to get some idea what our end project is gonna be, but we don't know what it's gonna cost in the end. And as a taxpayer, before we spend money, I'd like to know what that ultimate cost is gonna be. I've heard some figures of 10 million. I'd like to get a reputable feedback on what that ultimate cost is gonna be. Just a comment.
Okay. Any comments?
Have we
Mr.
looked?
Chairman,
Michelle, wait.
Yeah.
Who is that, Joe? Go ahead, Joe.
if I could just respond, I don't disagree with the previous speaker, but I disagree with him, is this is a condition that I inherited, and this is a condition that the town's been dealing with for over a decade. This is, I don't want anyone to mistake that the plans that I build are because this is exactly how I think or I want things to operate. But we're talking about existing programs, existing departments, and buildings that have been in use for years. On the one hand, I would argue that we're giving greater information than has ever been available regarding 204 Sisson, and I'm trying to do that for all of our buildings. I don't want to implicate any other buildings that there's other projects that are ongoing presently, and there are other projects that were just done where we didn't do any of that. So I am always striving as a chief procurement officer to make sure that we as a town do the best practices possible going forward. But this is government. It's not me. It doesn't fit into four corners easily, and we have to deal with what we've been handed us. And this building has been in operation, for better or for worse, for the last 7 years.
So I think we all understand that, and I think we're all interested in what's the best path forward to get to it. I'll just call it an end game, and that's not the right terminology. as to what we're gonna do with that building and how we're gonna bring it up to snuff, I guess I would just say. So,
May
other
I-
comments?
may I
Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess one thing that I think's missing is, comps. So we know there's other cultural centers around the Cape, what they look like in format and what is done at those cultural centers. So isn't that somewhat of a roadmap for us in terms of finding out what this end state is and really identifying the cost that would get us to that end state? Has that analysis been done, or has anybody taken some time to look at that? Because I do think that would be helpful. Because I feel like I'm kind of operating in a vacuum, what it might look like.
Yeah, I would say that every building's unique when you inherit
True.
basically an existing building. The middle school is much different than like the Yarmouth Cultural Center, whatever they call it, the Yarmouth Cultural Center. It's different. It's just a different building with different characteristics. I think what Kara has done in her report or her action plan is try and outline the programs that can happen that could bring people into the building. And that's her responsibility, quite frankly. Joe's responsibility is more of what do we do with the whole building, the whole thing, not just the cultural part of it. To me, I just think we should square up, and I'll just call it the envelope of the building, and get that squared away before we start doing individual, things like auditoriums and whatnot. Let's clean up the basic fundamental, call it safety, security, and integrity of the building before we take the next step. But that's just me.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you think the people who pay taxes in this town are all in support of that building and want the building and can tell you what they want to see? Every time we've put up votes of various kinds, they've said no. And then people change it. And I think there's an issue. Because we've played for 10 years or more with putting money into that and telling the building what it's going to be used for, and then either having it not happen, not figure out how to do it. It's difficult. In the last couple of months, a lot of the people that you talk to in this town don't want to pay a lot of taxes. Their problems of various sorts. And you ask them about that, they have no need for that building.
So everybody has the opportunity to come to town meeting
I know.
and vote. That's,
But
our job is collectively is to put
check it out.
business of the town before town meeting
Yeah.
and through a warrant, let people get up and have a debate
Let them see what they want to do.
and see what they want to do. Obviously, you can't, none of us can fund anything just because we want to fund it. It has to be approved, no matter what the source is, at least at town meeting. So, now this year, fortunately for us, I guess, is that we have significant free cash. And, we're not talking about borrowing this money typically. But free cash is taxpayer money. Now, I understand all that. I'm just saying.
What I'm saying is, if we have taxpayer money, we can use it doing something else.
Exactly right.
And then the taxes still get impacted.
Exactly. No, I understand. It's a complicated, integrated picture. There's no doubt about it. But in the end, the people that decide to participate in their government by coming to town meeting right here will be the ones that decide, what happens with this. And the debate can go on between now and then, and probably has before, about what do we do and how we're doing it. So, okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Go ahead, Nina.
I was saying, right, the debate has gone on before on all the other projects we've done on this. The community center had those same comments made about it. And people still to this day come to me and say that's the worst decision this town's ever made. Yet, I don't think so. The other building that I remember when we built the fire station headquarters was always referred to as the Taj Mahal. It was just supposed to be too big for what it was, gonna do. And I bet they can make an argument now that in some ways they've outgrown it. That discussion goes on every project we've ever done and every project we'll ever do. The community center is different because it's, the cultural center or 204, whatever we're calling it, is different because it isn't built like a library that has a core mission, or a police station that has a core mission, or the town hall that has a core mission. Both of the building and the core mission is evolving as we go through town meeting after town meeting. But all the subjects are raised, all the discussions are had, and the votes are taken. And so far, people have supported using the building, having functions there, and more is gonna put in front of them. And I think with this capital plan, starting to show the cost of all of our buildings, at some point, we'll have the choice to say, let's close a couple towns or whatever. But, the discussion's gonna go on about all of them. And the other part that you mentioned about our job, a big part of our job is making sure people come to town meeting and express their opinions.
Yep. Okay, Bob, you had a...
Well, actually, and I was going to just comment on reinforcing what Mark said, but I think Dana's comments actually add to it also, because everything he referred to were complete buildings with complete budgets for a complete building that was brought to the town. This is absolutely a piecemeal approach to an unknown future, and I would certainly hope that, or expect that, there'll be somebody that comes to town meeting that would ask the same question Mark's addressing, which is, at the end of getting to a completely retrofitted building, what's it gonna cost?
All right. Anybody else have any comments? What would you like to do with this, folks?
Just want to mention that might be the Sound Dunes ensemble we're hearing.
By the way, by the way, we didn't pipe in the music. We just happened to be in a music festival or something going on, maybe a waltz or something like that. I don't know. Okay, so if I understand correctly, $180,000 is going to be added to the plan in FY24 for 3 cruisers. We're going to take out all $50,000 requests. Do we want to add something in FY27 or 28 for the wastewater that we did? Maureen, where are you?
I'm here. I think Dan's online. Can I have him?
Dan, are you there?
Mr. Chairman, can I just pipe in on that though? I think if Finance Committee is gonna do that, I think you're doing a disservice to the Capital Outlay Committee. They went through months of arduous evaluation, and we had discussions about the out years. And so I would just ask that if it's something that we want to add to the plan, we should bring back to the table the Capital Outlay Committee and of course the Board of Selectmen. Because at this point, the plan is as was presented with the one caveat on the 183. So I want to be able to say here on behalf of Capital Outlay, they should be brought back to the table if there's going to be amendments to the plan. That is the nature and intent of the process. That was the nature and intent of the required joint meeting in December. So I'd be remiss if I didn't put that out there for consideration.
Now, I understand that, and my intent, if we wanted to do that, is not to amend the plan, but send back to the Board of Selectmen and the Capital Outlay Committee the recommendation that they should consider that in the plan. So I'm not...
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that would be my intent, Joe, just like, and I'm throwing this one out because that's my thing. If we want to separate the 204 Citizen Road stuff into what I call building safety, security, and integrity for 2024, and then put the auditorium upgrades in the following year, that would only be a recommendation for consideration from this board. We're not changing the plan. So,
I'm here.
yep.
And through Peter to Joe, I just want to make something clear. This discussion that we're having is nothing that the board voted, all right? This did come out of a back of the envelope discussion with just one commissioner and a few other odd people.
Don't say odd people.
But, and I believe there may have been a conversation between Peter and Dan about the overall picture of things. But I just don't want you to misunderstand, Joe. This is nothing that the board discussed, voted on, or is making a formal request.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, as an odd person,
Yeah.
I want to say that, Noreen, thanks for the clarification. I appreciate that. And I think if capital outlay members are listening, they'll understand that as well. So thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. Dan, wait, hang on. Dan, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Dan, so the question becomes, what do we do with, if we want to recommend, and again, we're not changing the plan, we're recommending if we add something in either 27 or 28 for wastewater?
Well, I think it's just, I just feel like it's an acknowledgement that something's coming, yet, you know, it's essentially yet to be seen until we work through the CWMP revisions and understand exactly what's going on with, you know, the new regulations and whatnot. I think it's responsible to plan for it, but as I think everyone in the room said that was there, this was, you know, a back of the napkin exploration as to how we could spend that kind of money in 20 years. So I would defer to you folks as to what to do, but I think it would be responsible to accomplish something.
Okay. So, all right, so we're down to recommendations, and they're only recommendations, okay? So either I can take a shot at it, or you folks can start throwing them at me if you'd like to, so.
Well, we have the sheet that you passed out concerning wastewater runout.
Yeah.
And that includes 27 and numbers for 27 and 28. That came from some conversation that was had, and we could recommend adding the numbers that are apparently available in to the capital plan. Those numbers.
Okay, we'll start a discussion. Any comment on it? So I want to make a motion. Is that a motion that you made?
I'll make a motion to add $84 million to fiscal 27 and $17.5 million to fiscal 28.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, again, recommendation only based on a discussion or work session, I would say, that Michelle and I had with Dan, Noreen, and Sandy, so. You guys comfortable with that?
So you're adding 87 million to what year?
84 in 27 is a recommendation, don't mark your plan up, and then 17 and a half in 28.
And this is in discussions with your debt schedule and what you see coming up?
Yeah, we did a work session.
This is right off here.
Okay.
Michelle probably still has the flip chart sheets that we work with and, you know, work through and whatnot, and then summarized it, so. Dana, Karen, you have any input there?
Yeah, if I can just, you know, because those are, you know, pretty astronomical numbers, right? So just to give a little bit of context as to kind of how they came about and why they're so big. You know, we saw a massive cost escalation between COVID to where we're at now with the cost of construction. So we did certainly input numbers, but what we also did was hit really large sections of town, which would be what would be required to try and do this in 20 years. So that's why the numbers are so big, because they represent large swaths of the various watersheds that we need to do. Whether or not it's feasible, you know, that's yet to be determined.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question as you deliberate,
Yeah.
It's more about procedural than perhaps rhetorical, but I still want to ask, what would it have taken to include administration in this informal and back of the napkin exercise? You know, we're within 60 days of town meeting, and we're adding closer to 100 million, if not over $100 million to the capital plan, theoretically or recommended. I get that finance committee wanted to have a subset to have a conversation, member of the water wastewater commission, but I work right down the street, and I would have loved to have been part of this conversation. So, because I think this recommendation and wherever we go with these numbers, completely changes the complexion and the manner in which we've been operating. And that's not just me being cheesed off as administrator. I think you're going to hear that from other members of the capital outlay committee. Thank you.
Okay. Point well taken. Go ahead, Mark.
Just as and Karen, disagree if you want to. On the capital outlay committee, we were basically in agreement with everything here, with the exception of 204 Sisson Road. So, I mean, I feel very comfortable what we've worked with on the capital outlay. The only things we had was 204 Sisson. And, you know, I'm not that as familiar with the wastewater, but this plan as it was, and correct me, Karen, we went through it in detail and we didn't raise any objections. So if you wanted a direction to go, I'd make a motion, and I'm just roughing something out to approve the capital outlay plan, with the exception of 204 Sisson Road for further discussion. I mean, just a thought. I'll put that out there because, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we spent a lot of time on this, and we had a lot of people coming in, and we agreed with them, and I think the plan was a pretty good plan.
Well, Mark, since you're asking me a question, I will say in the capital outlay committee, our function was not to approve anything. Our function was to listen to all of the department heads and everything they brought forth, and to everything on this plan that they reviewed, and they would answer our questions. They also answered some questions, or tried to answer some questions, about the out years that were blank, and, you know, things like FY 27 and 8, and, you know, we talked about 204, we talked about wastewater, so I think I think the plan outside of the FY 24 is a plan. And to Joe's point, it's gonna keep moving. I think we can be sure there's gonna be, if we proceed to try and support the 204 plan that Kara has put in place, we're gonna have to do more to the building to try and get the greatest advantage out of those programs, if you will. And I think there's some great stuff in there. I just don't think it's all in here. I think we've heard from John or people that are connected with him that there, for 204 Sisson, there's, you know, in excess of $10 million, but that stuff's not here, and maybe it's just not well thought out yet. I don't know, but I do know, even like with wastewater, I think the work that these guys have done with wastewater, while maybe not 100% aligned with the town process, whatever, is valuable, because I think it's a little misleading to show zeros across the board for wastewater in 27, 28, or for any of these major projects or things like that. I think, and to somebody's point, there's more facilities that aren't here, so it's just we don't have it all worked out yet. And so I'm not prepared to really, I think the plan, what Peter's suggesting to split out for 204 is I'm all for it, because I do think we should look at the building and security and safety and all that stuff. I do think the auditorium stuff is premature. I very much agree with that, because I think if you look at Kara's plan that she presented on Monday, there's a ton more stuff that will need to happen in the auditorium for it to be fully, I don't know, just in the best shape possible to support the programs that we think could come to our cultural center.
All right, Karen, I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. I'm gonna pull you back to the motion in the second we have, and the motion within the second we had was to add the wastewater items in 27 and 28. Well, excuse me, we'll get back to the other ones once we deal with this.
I'm all for that.
Well, once we get through this one. So let's just talk
Yeah.
about that at the moment, okay?
Okay.
What?
No. Okay. So I'm gonna speak counterpoint to Dan, which, you know, I really hate to do, but, I'm still asked about adding some of these numbers to 27 and 28. I see the virtue of giving people an idea that there are gonna be some extraordinary numbers coming up soon, and, maybe that could be presented as part of the dialogue of, when the wastewater budget or the capital plan gets voted at town meeting. But the reason that I would be hesitant to say to actually change and put the numbers in now, I mean, number one, it was a back of the envelope exercise, so, I don't know how much solidity they have. But also, the Board of Selectmen has not yet decided where the next phase is gonna be. So we know for the 47 million that's on your plan, that's gonna be the northern portion of East Harwich. We know that, defined area's been talked about a long time. That's phase 3. Phase 4 might be West Harwich. I could name a lot of other areas of the town that would be very popular too. And that's a Board of Selectmen decision. The Board of Water and Wastewater, we only control the areas where the flow has connected. We don't do future planning, certainly with stakeholders, but we are not the authority or the deciding force. So I'm hesitant, if I were voting with you guys, which I'm not, but I'm hesitant to put a number on a plan where we don't even know the geographic location.
We're not adding a number on the plan, we're making a recommendation that they
I meant to
consider
say,
it,
that's what I meant to say.
okay? And by the way, we're not saying it's this area, that area, it's just a number. And I defy you to tell me we're not gonna spend $84 million
No, you're
in that
absolutely right.
timeframe, no
Just
matter
giving you
what
my
happens.
opinion, Peter.
So we can either say the plan is fine the way it is, and by the way, we're not gonna spend any wastewater money after 2025, or at least authorize any wastewater money. Or we can simply make, as the motion says, make it a recommendation that there should at least be some consideration to some number that's gonna be out there in the 27, 28 area. I think as a, even if we didn't have this work session that Michelle and I went to and participated in, I think there's still gonna be something out there. So for us as a finance committee to sit here and say nothing's gonna happen in those years when we know the pressure's mounting to get something done in a compressed time frame, I can't agree with, quite frankly. So I support the motion. Again, it's just a recommendation, and that's it. So I'll just ask further discussion. Mark?
Are these best case, most likely case, or worst case numbers off the envelope?
It was working through the numbers that are in plans already, and then escalating based on basically Dan's experience with what he's seeing lately in the marketplace. So
These are likely numbers.
Huh?
These are likely numbers.
I guess. We don't have to put a number. We can just say we think something needs to be in there, period, if you want to do that. So, what are you comfortable with?
May I? Sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
It seems to me that's the same. I think it's important when we present this document of 5-year capital plan or capital document that we describe, and I know Joe does this, or somebody does it at the meeting, we talk about what FY24 is, the budget, and everything else is a plan, and that can shift as we learn things, new things, get into different years, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's an important discussion. I think it would be advantageous to the town in terms of transparency to say, like, wastewater, you see there's, we don't necessarily have to update this plan before that, but if we said, you see that there's zeros across water and wastewater in FY 27 and 28, if we acknowledge the fact that we just don't have it all spelled out yet, and that's why the numbers aren't there, like, this, I just think there has to be transparency in that regard. I don't necessarily think we have to add numbers there or even on some other places on this plan, but I do think we have to acknowledge pretty strongly that these numbers are gonna change and they're likely to go up, just like, somebody said, it might have been you, Peter, when you said, you know, the 124 number, it was probably at the end of those 5 years probably goes up because we don't have everything understood yet. I think somebody else will explain it in that way, and then maybe people can wrap their head around it, because what's important, as we all say, is to get some sense of what's coming in the out years, but really what's most important is what's the budget for this coming year, and that's what we really need to focus on, because that's real money.
Quite frankly, it's all real money, and, you know, if you go back long enough in this town, it used to be that the 5-year plan was an attempt to levelize or try to levelize our spending, if we could, as far as what we were taking on for major projects. And, you know, this one definitely is front-end loaded, there's no doubt about it, but that's just me. All right, what do we want to do, folks? Dan?
Could we footnote the plan to make reference to those numbers?
The only thing I want to do is recommend only to the Board of Selectmen. They can do with it what they want, so. Okay, this is not going any further, I mean, it's gonna be on TV, I guess, but it's not going any further than if they don't wanna put something in the plan or change the plan, it's not gonna happen. I think we, as a board, need to recognize there will be something out there and something should be considered. Not that we're gonna put it in, but should be considered, and that's what Bob's motion was, so.
Time to vote.
We done? All right. So the motion is that, as a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, the consideration be given to putting some numbers in the wastewater line item out in 27 and 28. And do you want to put the numbers in or leave them out?
The motion has them in.
Motion has them in, right? Okay.
And amend the motion.
So we'll go with, you want to amend the motion?
Do you want to amend the motion?
I don't want to amend the motion.
There you go, see? All right, so we had the motion, so that would just recommend the numbers that we had thrown the darts at the board at and come up with, that's all. And, okay, so we'll put that to a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Aye. Chairman's aye, it's unanimous for that recommendation. All right, anybody else have anything else they want to put in there? Karen, you were talking about 204 at Sisson Road. Is there anything you want to do there as a recommendation?
Yeah, I don't know how to say it, but I'd like pretty much a similar motion, but I don't want to suggest the numbers. Like, I think we know that this is, how do I say it? Like, how do I make a motion? To make a motion to recommend that we populate the FY 27, FY 28 numbers for 204 Sisson Road.
Okay, I guess from my standpoint, I can't tell from the three years that are referenced here with numbers, whether that means we're done or just starting, I don't know. So I have no idea what to try and put out there. You trying to say that we defined a complete picture or something? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think based on the plan that Kara shared on Monday, was that Monday?
Yep.
Yes.
There's a suggestion that, and let me pull it up, there's a suggestion that there are, hold on, let me just do what I got. Where'd it go? That the kitchen, sorry, I had a quote here, that technology, financial self-employed development. It says our highest ROI is the kitchen / cafeteria, auditory, and library. And as, the rates will not be able to be raised until these are basically updated. And so there's huge numbers. This sort of ties to what you were saying, Peter, is that we need to separate the building from what it's gonna take to support the programs. And I think if any of the program stuff is understood, like air conditioning or overhauling the kitchen, which is one of the notes that was in her document, or there's 1 million upgrades in the auditorium, the second set of upgrades in the auditorium that come beyond this, what they've already proposed. And there's a whole lot of stuff there, including upgrading the chairs, all kinds of stuff. And so my point is that if we should be able to see some of that, or at least, maybe it supports what you were saying, but if any of that needs to be done in the next 5 years, then I think it should be on here. And Kara's saying to fulfill her plan, or to fulfill her proposed plan, I should say, we need to do these big things. And I think those things, we should have a sense of what year that might come in. Because you can't go 5 years out and then say, okay, now let's start updating, because our plan is based on, her plan, or her projections for her programming is based on those upgrades.
Except I would argue, Karen, that with you, that preparation of return on investment is just generating income, with no contribution to paying back the investment, no contribution to covering overhead costs of running the events, etc. It all goes back, the way I read it, into hiring employees as time allows. So I think it needs to be taken several steps further, but that's that plan, okay? My concern right now is whether or not, it's only a suggestion, whether or not we want to try and separate doing the building stuff first and then doing the auditorium stuff, which is a program thing, second. That's all.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to do it all in FY '24.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and I do agree with that, splitting those out and not jumping the gun with the auditorium until some bigger stuff is completed on the building.
So is that a motion?
Sure, I make a motion to split out all of, for 204 Simpson Road, FY '24, split the 1.9 plus, capital between building stuff and the auditorium upgrades. So split building safety, security, integrity, I think are the words used, from auditorium upgrades or any other kind of facility, like upgrades for programs.
Okay, again, only a recommendation.
Yeah.
I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Wait, is there a second?
Yes, there was, from somewhere.
Was there a second?
Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay, move the second. You want to amend it?
I just want to add clarification. I would add moving $472,427 to fiscal 25 from fiscal 24.
Is that the auditorium upgrades?
Hi, Karen, you okay with that?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
What Bob's doing is identifying the numbers, that's all. So if you're okay, include that in your motion, all right?
Yeah, he's changed updated that with the numbers, as well as pushing the auditorium stuff out to FY '25, which is a very smart thing to do, just because, but anyway.
Okay, discussion on that motion?
Just one thing,
Yep.
we have Kara doing all this work. I think that's kind of her linchpin of her plan. So I would expect there'll be some blowback on that. The question will be, she's here, she's putting a program together, and if we don't do the auditorium plan, what does she do? Just a thought. That's the type of blowback I could see with that, moving that
It's
on.
only a recommendation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's the discussion that I would add to it.
All right, any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
if I could,
Go ahead, Joe.
I think it's more appropriate for me to hold my comments until after you vote, because I'm not part of your deliberative assembly. Unless you would be willing to hear it now.
Oh, go for it.
I think blowback is the right phrase. I think whether you call these recommendations or not, I think we're going down a bad path. I think the solution to it is as simple as getting in touch with your counterparts on the Board of Selectmen and the Capital Outlay Committee proper to have this discussion. The Capital Outlay Committee and me as town administrator have endeavored since May of last year to establish a plan, and the department heads have worked on that plan. If you're looking to move money around, I'd love to have a conversation of, if you're not gonna fund what the Director of Cultural Affairs has already told me and everybody else, she needs to bring in revenue and to do her job of cultural programming, which is why we have the dollars allocated to the auditorium and elsewhere. Then we should have a conversation about reallocating those dollars back into the building. Because I don't want anyone to think that it's as simple as saying 1.5 million this year for the building and $400,000 next year for the auditorium. It's all the same thing, but the word blowback is what caught my attention, and I do not want to deal with blowback. I would rather want to deal with two public bodies working together to have a fruitful conversation.
All right, so Joe, I'm gonna say this, okay? We left town meeting last year with the understanding we were gonna be working together with the Board of Selectmen and you to work on Sisson Road. We were told very emphatically by your board that our focus should be on the capital plan and the capital plan only. And you remember those discussions, I'm sure. So this is our one opportunity to at least say some recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen, and they can blow back all they want, but they blew back on us, quite frankly, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, this is your second opportunity. The charter requires all of us to meet in the middle of December, and we did that. And that would have been a great opportunity for me as a staff member and for other staff members to rely upon this legitimate and helpful discussion. It just would have been nice to have been able to do that with all public bodies at a public hearing that was held in December. And I am hopeful that the board reaches out to have these conversations, because I just think it's a bad look for our town, and I'm monkey in the middle, so I really hope that everybody can come together. I appreciate you letting me say my piece, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, good, Dana.
I'd just like to address Joe's comment. Joe, if you remember back the last year that I was chairman, it was the COVID year, and we had to deal with that very compressed schedule where we were actually scheduling this meeting, the public hearing on the capital plan, the night that we had to actually vote it for the warrant, for the finance committee's votes. You've done a very good job at trying to build time in for us to be able to react to these things and work on them. You were right, we had the presentation where the three bodies were there, but that was the beginning of it. That was the presentation to us, to the finance committee. And now that we have it and have had time to look at it, massage the numbers and hear more of what's going on, now we come up with what we see as what the public should be informed about. And that's what we're trying to do, is frame that. Now, if the next step is after this meeting, we get recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, which I'm sure the chair will take care of quickly. I think that the next step might be that the selectmen say, okay, yes, let's get all three parties into the room and have a meeting on it. And they can say that, no, we don't want to let the public have this information, or they can say, we do want to include it in the plan. But that's this is our starting point to be able to really get the meat of the issues out there. And the time frame has opened up since the last time you and I met as town administrator and chairman to do this. We were in a very compressed time zone, and you managed to open that up, but it's still not so wide that everybody has time to do all these things. Things come very quickly at us, and we're trying to react to them, and the numbers are very high. But I agree with what's going on in terms of the sentiment. This finance committee is looking at a plan that has 120 something million in it over 5 years, but it also has a lot of money missing from it for 5 years. So we just want that addressed and acknowledged. And if that means getting us all together to do that, let's do it. But this is our step of trying to make that happen.
Okay, other discussion?
May I ask
Yep,
one
go ahead, Michelle.
clarification? So I'd like to understand, so the reason why we're suggesting or recommending moving the 400 and something thousand to the following year is, could you clarify that reason? So I
Is to
understand it.
get the building, just call it building safety, security, integrity, the heating system, the fire alarm system, the generator, the transfer switch, etc. And once you have those in place, and I assume there'll be some discussion along the way about, are we air conditioning now, what are we doing? And then the following year, to do the auditorium mods. That's simple.
Just to spread the costs out, or?
Spread the costs out and get the building ready before you start saying, I'm gonna go modify the auditorium.
Step approach.
Which, by the way, I guarantee you will need to be air conditioned, you know, so what are you doing? Why do you wanna just solve one problem, do the auditorium and say I can't sell it because it's not air conditioned? That's it. Anybody else? All right, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
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 Dana?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, it's unanimous. Okay, so any other recommendations?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I recommend at some point you close the public hearing and take that vote.
no, we will do that once we're done with, are we done with the plan? Okay, so let me just clarify, the two recommendations back to the board of selectmen are adding in wastewater items in the out years, 27 and 28, and then breaking up into two segments the Sisson Road number and put the specific numbers in, okay? All right, any other discussion on the capital outlay plan? Hearing none, I am going to close the public hearing. So the public hearing is closed, and we'll move on to the next topic. Next topic is a public hearing on the FY '24 budget. Michelle, do you have that, please?
I do, yep.
Yep, please read it.
Notice is hereby given under the Harwich Home Rule Charter, Chapter 9, Section 3-3. The Finance Committee will hold a public hearing on the FY 2024 operating budget Thursday, March 9, 2023, no earlier than 6:30 p.m. This meeting will be a virtual public hearing where members of the public will be invited to join the meeting either via their computer, tablet, or smartphone. The dial instructions will be posted in the meeting agenda when it is posted prior to the meeting. Meeting agendas must be posted at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. A copy of the proposed operating budget will be available in the agenda packet. The operating budget will also be printed in the annual town meeting warrant, which will be published and distributed at least 2 weeks prior to the annual town meeting.
Thank you. So with that, I'll open a public hearing. Joe, do you want to give a little summary as to the total numbers in the budget or something like that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, if I could defer to the finance director to first mention what was added for the news reports that we all relying upon Saturday. She should be able to walk us through what some of those changes were. And then I can certainly speak to
Okay,
priorities and everything else.
all right,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Anne Marie?
We can't hear you.
Anne Marie, you're on mute.
There we go. Good evening, thank you for having me. You all have received the munis reports that we all discussed and made changes to from the Saturday meeting. The additional changes that have come forward, if you want to redo your revenue budget, the opioid funds were put in there for FY22. That's down on page 6. It's highlighted in yellow. This is a projection of funds that we currently will be receiving from Brown Greer, as well as anticipating the town participating with the additional funds coming from the pharmacies such as CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Teva, and Allergan. So that's $102,327.71. We rounded that up. That's the only change that we've had to the total revenues, and that keeps the local receipts at $15,884,801. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, what's that total figure again on revenue? I'm sorry.
I lost it.
I'm sorry.
Give me a second. It just closed on me.
Are we able to hard copies up from Saturday, or was there an update?
What's that?
Was there an
Anne Marie,
update sent, or were we
I'll
able to
get it.
hard
Don't
copy
worry
on
about it.
Saturday?
I'm all set. Thanks. I don't want to have you go
I
back.
have it right here.
Mark, thank you so much.
Okay. Nothing has happened to CBC whatsoever with regard to any revenue or the expenditures, so that remains the same. The water department did call in and they did want to make a change to the administration cost for the long-term debt. So they wanted to reduce that from what was previously listed at $24,138.50 down to $1,963.
Where are you?
On your budget that says enterprise fund for next year.
Water, okay, water, not wastewater, yeah, okay.
So those organization codes start with 1320. So the total revenue shows at $5,190,895. It drops down to $4,556,555. So they are projecting a revenue receipt of $634,340.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
So there will be a change for our general fund expenditures. Having received confirmation of potential retirements, we've been able to move the police and fire expenditures out of their budgets and into the central patient salary, wages, and sick buyback. So we have 3 from the fire department, 2 that you already heard from the library on Saturday, and another 3 from police department. So with that, it brought our expenditures to be needed to be $111,172.43 for the vacation and salary wages, and the sick leave buyback at $105,185. So incorporating that into the budget, as well as removing them from police and fire, which reduced the amounts. Fire was reduced in the vacation salary and wage by $46,227. Reduced the police $41,939. The sick leave buyback for fire was reduced to $61,228, and the reduction to sick leave buyback for police was $22,246. So altogether, what that does, massaging the numbers, is a total reduction to the budget of $139,637. There was an additional $20,000 needed for the fire department for their first time lodging for the new recruits. So the long and the short of it is the impact to the budget was a reduction of $120,337.
Anne Marie, will you send me the updated unit sheets electronically, and I can share them with my team?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That will make sure we get it right. And could we just, while I have you up there, the position matrix, which Karen sent you, right, Karen?
Mm-hmm.
Can you update or fill in the numbers on benefits and whatnot for us? Not right now, but.
No, not right now.
Yeah.
But yes, we started and finished for you, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else for us?
Oh, no, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Joe? You there? There he is.
Indeed. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, again. When you heard the finance director, town accountant go over, is going to be reflected in the draft warrant. As you folks are always familiar with the articles, we tend to have the tables that outline the uses. And of course, in the explanations, we'll have the sources. But this is all going to be presented to the board for their meeting on March 13th and be in their packet tomorrow. So it will be available generally to the public, but as I said earlier, as the board adds these articles to the warrants, I'll send them out to you folks so you can do your charter responsibility recommendations as well.
Okay. All right, so I just point out to everybody, for anybody that doesn't know, the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen met last Saturday for an all-day basically session where basically department heads are invited in to make their presentations on their budgets and whatnot. And both boards had the opportunity to ask questions. I'll just ask if you folks have come up with additional questions or information you'd like to have before, well, during this public hearing. So.
I just had one question. I had brought up at the hearing how the resource officer at the tech is only $20,000. I'd hate to see that get lost in the process. I noticed in the budget that came in from the tech, it's still at $20,000. Of course, it wouldn't have changed that quickly, but how does that happen, that gets up there? Does Chief Considine update it, send it? How does the process work?
Joe, I defer that to you, whether you'd be working with the police chief or with the resource officer at the tech to identify any potential additional revenue that may come to support, basically our resource officers there at the tech school.
Thank you. I believe I heard one of the more veteran members of the Board of Selectmen say that the dollar amount is locked into, I believe what would be the regional agreement. So I have a call into Mr. Sanborn anyway to validate that. So if it's not a locked-in rate in the agreement, the town would certainly be looking for greater support from either Cape Cod Tech or the other communities to account for the required SRL. But if memory serves, I think what I heard Saturday is it was agreed that the host town would provide that, and that is the dollar amount. So we're still trying to validate that with the administration at the tech.
Okay. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna get reflected in the budget for next year. It's gonna be something as a follow-on. So, yeah. Other questions, concerns? Yep, Maureen? Bit late.
Yes, it is. So, I just want to clarify something from Saturday's session. And I don't have the most updated munis reports or anything, so if I'm off a few dollars, you'll understand. The budget that was in your packet, Peter, came to a total of 30 million.
Which budget are we talking about?
The operating.
Yeah, okay.
Budget came to 30,090,000 and some dollars. I have an old report. And that is pretty much within a few hundred, the same number that I saw reflected on the sources and uses report that was given out on Saturday, the updated one. So just for the finance board's sake, I'm just clarifying that number, Anne Marie, is still carrying the old wastewater debt number or subsidy number is clear to say of 761,076, as opposed to the amount that was corrected by Dan. Help me, Dan. So that, I believe that 761,076 should be
It's
1108.
1015.
I'm sorry, Dan?
050.
I'm sorry.
Say again, Dan.
$1,015,050.
All right, so I'm just pointing that out for the sake of these folks who are. Is what Dan and I just said an accurate statement, Anne Marie?
Yes, and if you look on the bottom, the date, that's tampered through there, so if you're looking at an older one, we had a version, the last one that went out is 3/7, and another one will be going out tomorrow of 3/9.
No, that's all right, I'm not in the mail loop, so I just wanted to, so I'm looking at the one for 3/4, so.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to say that this says we have a balance of 1194, and that's not up to the minute, let me put it that way. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, issues, topics, updates? I think it speaks to the comprehensive assembly of the documentation associated with the budget, and I think we all look forward to working through it and getting it past town meeting. Anne-Marie, you are going to update for us the new personnel spreadsheet with the costs on it, right?
I'll get it at least started.
Yeah, okay, all right, good. All right, anything else on that? Anybody, anything you want to say? All right, hearing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing on the operating budget. It's, almost 8 o'clock. Good. And thank you all for participating. Any other business that come before us? Okay, just a reminder, we are going to meet with the Monomoy Regional School District in this room on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Dana, you're gonna work that posting, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I guess, I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume.
Don't assume.
I'm contemplating the idea that we're not going to have to do tomorrow night.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, so if we leave posted on the door, at the small hearing room that meeting was canceled.
Right.
We can arrange to do that. I'm in Rome, I can do it, but, anything we closer to that.
Oh,
Got it.
equipment,
All right,
fancy time.
good. All right, so motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Move to second to adjourn. Anybody don't wanna go home?
It's like a bunch of
All
kids
in
at
favor?
recess. Let me get out of here.
Aye. Aye.